Welcome to Crypta Librorum, the hidden library where fear tells its tales. Let's open today's page and find out what fear has in store for us. You wake up gasping, sweat on your skin. Your heart is racing. It wasn't real. No monster, no fail, no disaster. Just a dream. But your body doesn't know that. For those few seconds after you wake up, the fear feels completely real. Welcome back to Crypta Librorum. Nightmares are strange when you think about it. You're literally scaring yourself. Your brain is the director, the audience, the scriptwriter, the lighting, everything for those horror shows. And they feel different from regular dreams. More intense, more vivid. The kind that stick with you hours after you wake up. Most adults have nightmares. Kids tend to deal with them more often or more frequently. Some really lucky few never have them, and some others get them constantly. Nightmares happen during REM sleep, when your brain activity is actually pretty similar to being awake, which is why the feel is so real. Your brain is running at almost full speed and full power while your body is paralyzed in sleep. The fear is strong enough to wake you. That is what separates a nightmare from just a bad dream that fades while you're still sleeping and you won't even remember when you wake up. But here is what I find interesting. Most people treat nightmares like they're just random, terrible experiences to endure. Something annoying that happens sometimes. What if I told you that there might not be random at all? Pay attention to what your nightmares are actually about. Not the actual literal content, not whether it's zombies or falling or being chased by wind or demons. Pay attention to what the nightmare makes you feel. Being unprepared, losing control, being attacked, failing at something important, someone you love being in danger, being helpless. These themes show up across cultures, across ages. They're not about the specific scary thing, they're about core human fears. Your specific nightmares might be telling you what is actually stressing you out in waking life without you even realizing it. I used to have this recurring nightmare about being back in school, unprepared for a test I didn't even know about. I haven't been in school for years, but the dream kept happening whenever I felt overwhelmed at work. The nightmare wasn't about school. It was about feeling unprepared and out of control in my actual life. Other examples could be dreams about being chased, because maybe you're avoiding something or feeling pursued by responsibilities you can't handle right now. Dreams about losing someone could be anxiety about a relationship, fear of abandonment, Stress about someone's health you're not acknowledging through the day. Dreams about falling, often connected to feeling like you're losing your grip on something in waking life. Nightmares are your brain processing stress and fear. And if you pay attention to the patterns, they might help you to figure out what's actually bothering you. Some researchers think nightmares might actually serve a function. Think of it like practice runs for dealing with threats. The idea is that your brain creates stressful scenarios so you can rehearse emotional responses and be prepared if something similar happens in real life. You've already been through the emotion, the experience, in a safe context. This is still debated, definitely not proven, but there's some interesting evidence. Studies have found that people who watch horror movies or engage in scary content or encounters in games tend to handle real-world stress better in some situations. Horror fans reported feeling more psychologically prepared during the early pandemic, for example, although you have to bear in mind this is a study of people self-reporting things. So that does not mean that this actually is what is going on, but this is how people feel. And in this specific situation, if you're feeling more prepared, then it might be easier for you to continue your life through the problems. Maybe experiencing fear in a controlled setting, whether it's movies, books, games, dreams, does something useful. Lets you practice feeling scared and coming through it intact. Think of it about how athletes visualize scenarios before games, how pilots train in flight simulators, how emergency responders run drills. Maybe nightmares are your brain's version of that. Unpleasant practice sessions for handling fear and stress and mess and chaos. But let's be clear. This does not mean in any way that nightmares are good for you, or that you should try to have more of them, or that you should feel grateful when you wake up at 3 a.m. I'm just saying they might not be completely useless. Now, there is a huge difference between having nightmares sometimes and having them constantly. Occasional nightmares, especially during stressful periods, that's really normal. Your brain is processing your elevated stress while you sleep. But when nightmares become frequent and start disrupting your life, there's a different situation entirely. For people that suffer with PTSD, nightmares replay trauma over and over. The same horrible memories, never actually processing them, just reliving them. That is not practice, that is just torture. And the consequences are real. Frequent nightmares are linked to depression, anxiety, poor sleep quality, daytime exhaustion, lack of focus. When they happen night after night, they wreck your ability to function. If nightmares are consistently disrupting your sleep and affecting your daily life, that is not something to tread lightly. That is not something to just push through. That is something that needs actual professional help. Please seek to it. The line between occasionally unsettling and genuinely harmful really matters. And there is no shame in recognizing when you have crossed that line and you need help. So, How do you actually use nightmares as information instead of just suffering through them? Well, you have to start tracking them. Keep a notebook by your bed. When you wake up for a nightmare, write down what happened, and more importantly, how it made you feel. That will make it easier to see through the patterns. You do not have to decode any symbols or analyze any hidden meanings. You have to see through the patterns. That is why an imagery and how you felt will be really helpful to find them. If you keep having nightmares about failing at tasks, that might point to performance anxiety that you're not addressing. That might point to you not actually knowing what to do in the situation. If you keep dreaming about conflict or being attacked, maybe there's a confrontation you're avoiding in real life. If nightmares spike after particularly stressful days, maybe you need better ways to process stress before bed. I noticed my nightmares got worse when I was avoiding difficult conversations, and that was something that happened a lot. Once I started addressing conflicts directly, instead of letting them build up, the nightmares decreased and eventually stopped. Coincidence? Maybe, although I don't really think so. But that's just my opinion. Now, paying attention to the pattern gave me the useful information about my stress level. Some people use something called image rehearsal therapy. So, what do you do in that situation? You take the nightmare and you consciously rewrite the ending while you're awake. You write it down, you rehearse it, you think about it like you're an actual actor. You rehearse and you rehearse and you rehearse the new version. Some research shows this can actually help some people. Your brain can learn the new script and push through your anxiety and your stress. Now, not everyone responds to it, but if you have nightmares that becoming semi-regular, maybe it's worth a try. Basic sleep habits help a lot too. For example, having a regular schedule or your room being in a good temperature for you. Usually people tend to have more relaxed sleep in more cooler environments. Maybe you can reduce the screen time before bed or have less caffeine in the evening. Now, don't get confused, these do not prevent all nightmares, but because disrupted sleep makes everything worse, it makes even nightmares worse. Also, having a nice bath or a shower before you go to bed and having clean sheets that smell in a way that you like before you go to bed might even lower your stress to the point that you actually avoid having nightmares. Now, the real value in nightmares might not be the nightmare itself. It might be what they force you to confront. During the day, you ignore a lot of things. Even if you do not realize it, you distract yourself, you stay busy, you push things down, you forget about them. You even tell yourself that you already dealt with them or you will deal with it later. Or maybe you say that it's somebody else's problem. But at night, when you're asleep, your brain processes what you've been avoiding. And that's what makes you to have a nightmare. That nightmares, for example, about being trapped may be reflecting feeling stuck in a situation or a job that you're not admitting that it's bothering you. A nightmare about loss might be your brain's way of processing grief that you have forgotten or you have pushed away, or fear you're keeping buried during waking hours. Nightmares are terrible, are uncomfortable, and that's the way they're meant to be. But they might be your brain's way of saying, this thing is bothering you and me more than you're willing to admit. So now you actually have to deal with it. So instead of just trying to stop nightmares, try asking what they're pointing towards. What am I actually stressed about? What am I avoiding? What fear am I carrying around in my brain daily that I haven't acknowledged? The nightmare itself might be disturbing, but the information, it could be genuinely life-saving. If nightmares about performance anxiety keep showing up, maybe it's a signal to address the actual source. Talk to your boss about a walk around. Well, don't show up and say, yo, look, I have nightmares, what can we do about it? No. Maybe talk about the workload you have. Set some more realistic expectations. Always get support. If it's not something that's chronic and daily and really bad, ask some help from your friends or speak with them. Ask them for their ideas or how they would deal with it. Again, if you have a chronic problem with nightmares, please get support from specialists, from health specialists. Another example would be if nightmares about relationships keep recurring. Maybe that's pointing to conversations you need to have or boundaries you need to set that in waking hours you do not realize that they are bent or they are silenced. If nightmares spike during certain periods, maybe that's information about when you need extra stress management and relief. Never underestimate the power that stress has on you and how easy it is, well, in moderation, to get release from that stress, even momentary. By releasing and managing your stress, you will have a better sleep for sure. So if you sleep better, you have less chances of a nightmare. Now, this does not mean every nightmare has some deep psychological meaning you need to decode. Sometimes your brain is just being weird, it's just being tired, just wants to empty its recycle bin. Or maybe you ate some spicy food too close to bedtime. Or you ate too much too close to bedtime. But when patterns emerge, when certain themes keep showing up, that is worth paying attention to. Nightmares are not meant to be a punishment. They're usually not a random brain static noise. They're your brain processing fear and stress in the only way it can while you're unconscious. Sometimes it might be useful giving you practice with emotional responses, pointing you towards stress you need to address, flagging problems you're actively ignoring. Sometimes they're harmful, especially when they become constant and start destroying your sleep and mental health. That different matters. Thank you for watching. You can drop your short nightmare stories in the comments if you want. You don't have to go through crazy details. I am genuinely curious what patterns you might notice in your own dreams. And again, if nightmares are seriously affecting your life, talk to a professional immediately. There is no shame about it, there is only proud. There are treatments that might actually work for you and you will have a normal, stress-free, trauma-free, relaxing sleep and a wonderful life. See you in the next chapter. If you made it this far, thank you. You're helping keep the light on for everyone still afraid of the dark. Subscribe, share the story, and I'll see you in the next chapter.